Hey now, good morning and happy Thursday, PASW staff, clients, friends joining us. So film scoring results are in for White Lotus Season 2. Great job, guys. Can't wait to show you that tomorrow. Really nice work. It's kind of cool. This is the first time doing Season 2. And we saw the juxtaposition of 1 and 2 and how they sound similar. But of course, as writers, composers, you expand upon something. So that's what the composer did. Okay, so it's LA tourism right now that's going on. And so we looked at the library, Griffith Observatory. So we're going to go to one of the world's shortest railways in the world, right in Bunker Hill, right in downtown. And today we're going to revisit Angel's Flight. So it's believed Angel's Flight's carried about more passengers per mile than any other railway in the world. I mean, it's maybe the shortest railway, but you can see it. I mean, it's been in hundreds of movies, it's in books, it's in video games. Not that I play video games, but it's in video games. And it's a landmark. It's about 2 feet. It's very narrow. And a railway in the Bunker Hill section of downtown Los Angeles. So we're going to talk about the history of it. We're going to talk about a term called funicular, which I had no idea what it was before, but we'll get into that. The 2 cars are Olivet and Sinai, and those are named after biblical mountains. So we're going to be seeing 2 cars, and they run in the opposite directions, sharing a cable. That's about 300 feet, so that's the railway we're talking about. Right now it's on Grand Street, so it's 350 South Grand, and it kind of links. The Grand Central Market is right there at the bottom of the Water Court building. So this connects Hill and Olive Street, so we'll have way too much fun talking about Angel's Flight. So with the 300 feet, it lasts about 30 seconds. So let's look at our timeline of when the first. So there were a few different train-like railways in LA. It was hard to kind of hunt them down. Angel's Flight wasn't the only one, but that's the main one we're going to be talking about. So it opens New Year's Eve 1901. So 1901 is early. Let's look at our timeline. I mean, it's after the Bradbury building, which we did, and which is just maybe 2 blocks away from Angel's Flight. So Bradbury, opened way, before that. But this is way before, City Hall and, or the City Hall that we talk about today, before the Beverly Hills Hotel, before the pier, before the Venice Canal. So 1901 is when it is first constructed. So what's going on? I mean, in the 1900s and 1901, what's going on? Well, the big thing in the world is there a shift to the industrial age, right? Where there's factory workers now, and that's kind of, people are becoming more reliant, dependent on machines, for better or worse. There's complications, of course, but Henry Ford's coming out in 1913, going to be coming out with something called the car, right? The automobile, as we like to call it. So there's an expansion of the middle class now, because people are working in these factories. Newly developed ways of transportation, so people are expanding outwards now, with subways and trams and railways and railroads. So traveling became easier, so more migration. So more technology and making people's lives easier, of course. But there's always and this is before the horrible World War I, of course. So that's kind of what's going on in the 1900s. But music-wise, I mean, so in the 1900s, because we're talking about an event in downtown, this historical landmark that was there. Who's going on? I mean, we think of composers that we've talked about. I mean, we think of composers as being, oh well, they're all like Bach and Mozart, but who's writing music in 1901? I mean, we have Sibelius writing music. We did a whole class on Sibelius. We did a whole class on Mahler. Mahler's still got about another 10 or 11 years left before he's done writing music. Debussy is still writing music. So mostly the biggest music, and we haven't talked a lot about operas, but opera is really, really big. Puccini in the world of classical music. And then in popular music, we've talked a lot about the Tin Pan Alley. This is like the Song Factory, but this is all in New York, of course, where composers and musicians would sell songs, sheet music, and so Tin Pan Alley songs are being, and of course we hardly ever go through a class without talking about ragtime music and Scott Joplin music. So Scott Joplin's still alive writing ragtime music. So that's the kind of music, classical, opera, Tin Pan Alley, ragtime. We're not yet into jazz yet. We're, there's blues and everything, but swing is not yet in. So things are getting exciting. So that's kind of just what is going on musically. So J.W. Eddy, friend of Abraham Lincoln, finances this. He's a colonel, and it opens New Year's Eve, 1901. And Angel's Flight began originally at the corner of Hill Street and 3rd, and ran for 2 blocks uphill northwestward to Olive Street. And so it had two boarding stations, so you could and pretty steep incline. That's probably why there's been some accidents. So as one car, ascends, the other car descends, carried down by gravity. I guess. So the cute little archway greets passengers on the hillside entrance, and the name became the official. The name became the official name of the railway in 1912. When other people purchased it, but when in its heyday, it was a huge tourist attraction. It was also very practical because people would, Bunker Hill was a very big part of downtown. As we've talked about the history of Los Angeles, all of commerce, everything started downtown. So it was a way for people and pedestrians to avoid a lot of these big streets. So since they were so hilly, you could use Angel's Flight to, especially if you have groceries and all of these things, you could just take Angel's Flight. It closes in 1969 because this is when they're like, we don't need all these nice mansions in Bunker Hill, and we could get into the history of all the demolition, and that would be depressing. But they store these cable cars for about 27 years. So. Until 1996 is when they reopened them at the location that it is now. So you wonder why some of these things were torn away. Big reason was cars. People loved automobiles, and we still love our car here. We've talked about how the Pacific Railway and all of these things kind of just stopped, unfortunately, because people really were into their cars. So when the second one opened in 1996. Tracks connecting Hill Street and then the California Plaza. And it was fine for a few years until 2001. Somebody died, and it took about 9 years for it to reopen in 2010. And it was closed again in 2011. There was a little minor derailment. For some reason, we couldn't. Some reason LA doesn't fix some of these problems that well. In 2013, they discovered there was some safety issues that they needed to address. So, like I said, Angel's Flight wasn't the only one. There was another thing that was called the Court Flight that brought passengers up and down. These were all very steep hills. The hills are still there, of course. But that was 1905, so that was a little bit after, until 1943, when a fire destroyed it. So even though that area is still named Bunker Hill, it's not what it was. As we're seeing the beautiful mansions and houses, they relocated many of them, but most of them were probably just destroyed. And it displaced a large community, about 22,000 people, working class families. They had to move elsewhere. Modern apartment condominium places came in, and it's just another unfortunate part of Los Angeles that things had to be moved around, So after all those accidents, it opened up in 2017. So it is open now, so we can do it. But it was designated as a historical cultural landmark in 1962, so a few years before it was shut down, and then added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2000. So it's open now. We should go. It's a one-way ride, costs $1. So it's just really fun. There's Grand Central Market there, tons of places to eat. Thought it was just an interesting little thing. I've gone up once. It's a lot of fun just to ride, but like I said, it lasts about 30 seconds. A big part of our history though, and just thought I wanted to share some of that. So I think, well, I don't know if we can all fit, but we should take turns and go up and see the beautiful views of Los Angeles and downtown. So I did indeed go on Angel's Glide about a week ago. So what you just saw, this is not just me reading a script. This is actually me doing it. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that it's really cool to experience this. If you're downtown going on this little funicular railway, 315 feet, it's very, in 30 seconds, it's very quick, but it's so cool from 1901. And then we've seen, the progression of the train car. And you can go on at any time. Just, one way costs $1. So hope you enjoyed that. And tomorrow, TV scoring results for White Lotus. Okay, have a great rest of the day. Bye.